Hello there, this is the AnYPony, and welcome back to my podcast, which name I have forgotten already again. God damn it. Okay, but I am not alone here today, because by now a lot of you might already know this face. With me is DrWolf. Welcome to the show, Doctor.
Greetings and good evening, ANY, or rather, good morning for me and good evening for you.
And whatever time it is for you when you're watching this. Yeah, as we discovered a while, not too long ago, we haven't really talked a lot in quite a while until recently when we had a call about a project and we were like, well, we have to talk more. So yeah, this is pretty much where we are right now.
Yeah.
And we were like thinking, what could we talk about? And then Dr. Wolf came up with the idea that might be interesting for a lot of you, like talk a little bit about YouTube, how to make it, what to look forward to, and well, I guess it's a topic we both can talk about for quite a while. I mean, I myself made this video a while back when I tried to analyze Digi success, and in that regard, I already kind of reflected on a lot of stuff. And even so, I myself do a horrible job following all the guidelines I discovered. At least I can ramble about it. And well, in your case, Dr. Wolf, I'd say you actually manage far better to actually have fulfill a lot of those aspects that help you. So.
In many ways, yes, but I can think of a couple of exceptions here and there.
But hey, after all, you just, if I recall correctly, cracked the 20,000.
Yeah, I
So
did
congrats
just
on
barely
this.
crack 20,000 subscribers, and it's a great feeling, and everybody's already telling me, well, we can't wait till you hit 30,000. I'm like, okay, yeah, that'll be fun. If that happens.
It is so amazing. I mean, on a personal level, it is like really stunning to see that, oh my God, there are literally thousands of people who are following what you do. But it is also amazing in the context of MLP analysis. If at the time around beginning of season 3, the biggest fish in the ocean was paleo with, I believe, 10 or 11,000, and everybody was like, whoa, he is a god. And look at it nowadays, like with people in the multiple 10,000s. Wow.
I suppose you could maybe consider Saberspark to be somewhat pony analysis. He had a few videos like that in his early days, and he was a fair bit bigger than Paleo back then.
Yeah, the My Two Bits.
Yeah, they were probably the two biggest, in my opinion, before Season 3 got started.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it even took Digi quite a while to finally catch up with Saber. But yeah, by now he surpassed him quite rapidly. I still think that it's an interesting sign of how much the community as a whole has grown, or the fandom, that simply there what started out to be a rather small niche, because the analysis Saber did was not his bread and butter. He was simply he was a Ballad of the Brony guy. He was just basically the poster child of bronies, you could say, in a certain way. I mean, what other popular face did you have back then to give bronies? One that was not tainted by media.
Not really sure. I suppose back in 2012, I was still getting into the show and still getting into the community. There were a lot of things that I didn't know about the community yet. It's just that Saberspark was one of those people that I found really early on and watched through his very lengthy Ballad of the Brony video, and I started to understand a lot more about what the community was about.
Same here, same here. I mean, the entire stuff about the backstory on 4chan and whatnot, I know all this stuff only from Saber, so, to be honest. Yeah, but I would say it really was for a lot of people who were just discovering the fandom. It was a really great entry point because, well, it was a rather lengthy video, agreed, but it gave a lot of context, a lot of history, and it also had a big chunk of autobiographic parts on Saber's end, if I recall correctly, or I'm mixing it up with one of his other videos. Could be, has been a while since I watched it. But it gave really a point. It gave someone to relate to. You were like, when you discovered this and you didn't really know where to start, you came across this video and you were like, okay, now I have the feeling, okay, there is actually this bigger community. There are people you can talk to and stuff like this. So, I guess it is really a solid start into the to when you discover yourself or you get interested. It's a good thing for people to get a better impression. I mean, at least better than sending them some clips from Fox News or something.
Right.
But yeah, to talk a little bit about YouTube. So what kind of angle would you like to approach this topic?
I think there are 3 main topics that people would be most interested in hearing, particularly those who want to get started on YouTube but haven't done anything yet. You have getting started on making your first video, getting noticed with your first video, and then how to do collaboration projects. I get a lot of questions on all 3 of these topics, and I know there are plenty of people who want to learn but don't feel like there is enough of a resource to learn from.
The first thing that comes to mind already when hearing this list is you should do it in this very order.
Yes.
Because this is the first thing a lot of people get wrong. I have got requests for collabs from people who haven't even done a single video.
Right. I get those too.
I mean, one particular one I can recall was somebody who was like very enthusiastic and was like, I want to start with a bang. And yes, I can see this idea, but as somebody who has a little bit of experience in this field, I can say it doesn't work out this way. And you can be very lucky. I mean, a recent example, for example, would be Keyframe, whose first appearance was in a collab video with Silverquill.
Yeah.
This is starting out with a bang.
Silverquill was doing a lot of collaboration projects. I mean, almost half his season 4 reviews were involving 1 or more guests. So he's the kind of guy who's been very patient and very helpful and very welcoming for people, but even he reached a point where he said, no more collaboration projects. I got to be doing more of my own stuff, kind of thing.
Yeah. Also, one thing that makes Silverquill a great collaborator for upcoming or for new people is that basically, since he is doing all the editing, including even your OC, I mean, I have a complete set of OC, but for this Pony Finder promotion video, I joined him. He, in the end, created my OC completely new. He does really everything, animation, editing, and everything. So if you are a complete newbie, all you have to do is record your lines. Silverquill does the rest. But except for getting noticed, on the one hand, this is rather cool for somebody who never has done anything to get out there. But on the other hand, you still cannot do any of the other stuff. You don't know how to do it yourself. And it actually sets the bar very high. So keeping the quality Silverquill delivers on a regular basis for your own channel, I cannot do it. I say it right. I can't do a little bit of what Silverquill does. So
yeah.
So there is a little bit of a double-edged sword to get to start with such a big bang like a collab with Silver. But while we pretty much are going to brainstorm a little bit about it, I guess you mentioned earlier you are also going to do a little bit of thought through scripted cohesive series about this. So this right?
Yeah.
So this is basically a little bit of brainstorming, helping you maybe getting some new insights. I hope I can deliver. I'm not sure.
Well, I actually started on a script for the first video yesterday, almost finished it. I want to put it into 3 sections because getting started on making your first video is a subject all by itself. You can easily fill 6, 7, even 8 minutes worth of video on that. And then getting noticed with your first few videos. That's another 6 to 8 minute long video I can fill. And I want to end it with doing collaborations because, like you said earlier, people need to understand you have to do it in this order. And there's plenty that I can talk about with how to collaborate and what to do and what to look for and who to talk to kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, with the first subject, getting started, the question I hear most is, what video editing program do I use, or how can I find it, or hey, can you teach me how to do these things? And I'm trying to be helpful. I really am. I'm a lot more patient than most other people out there, and I'm more interested in hearing what other people have to say and what their questions are, and I'm trying to answer as many as I can, but I do not have the time to go through everyone's requests.
And what I can say in that regard is, as hard as it might sound, when you don't know how to do video, don't do video, or learn. This is the thing. The problem I guess many people have is they go to YouTube, they see those videos and are like, bam, I want to do this as well. And I know that I have been there myself, like seeing stuff and being like, wow, I really want to be able to do this. But the problem is the basic know-how about you can ask specific stuff like, for example, how to structure a review or something like this. This is something you, I guess, could ask somebody who is actually into it. But the handiwork itself, the know-how of editing, you need to bring this to the table yourself. And if you don't have it, there are endless tutorials out there. This is something like, sure, you're asking about what software you use. Yeah. It's, I guess, a good start because whenever somebody is like, I'm using Windows Movie Maker, I'm like, you have a hard pass before you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know, what do you use, Doctor?
I started using iMovie. I'm still using iMovie.
Yeah.
The only reason I went with iMovie is because before I started making my first video, I didn't want to spend money on expensive software. I had no idea whether I'd have anyone come see the video that I'd make. But I noticed that the computer I had came with iMovie, and I started experimenting with it. And I started figuring out, how do I record my voice? How do I collect images? How do I put them into iMovie? How do I match them with the audio? It was a process that took me a few days, but I was determined enough to figure it out. And if I got really stuck, I'd go to Google and I'd say, how to in iMovie, how do I do this? And like you said, there are thousands of tutorials out there. You go to YouTube and you will find step-by-step instructions on how to do anything in any software program you can think of. You just have to go look for it. And you have to take the time to actually listen to it.
And yeah, pretty much a perfect example of the point I was trying to make earlier, that if this kind of handiwork, this kind of general stuff, you have to get this yourself. You have to be, like DrWolf did, go out there. The information is out there, but going to somebody on YouTube and being like, in general, I mean, sure, specific questions like, how do you this specific thing? or like I said, structure of reviews or something like this, which is closer to home for us, because well, this is what we do. This is something I guess that is appropriate to ask. But if you for starting from scratch, starting with video editing 101, you have to bring a little bit of, or you have to do your homework a little bit first yourself, and it is possible. I mean. Yeah, as DrWolf proved, iMovie is one of the very basic programs, I believe. I had to work with it once. I haven't worked enough with either iMovie or Windows Movie Maker, so I cannot tell if one is actually better or whatever. But I know that those are basic programs, and you find the information everywhere and stuff like this. I mean, maybe to answer the question from my end as well, I use Adobe Premiere, and I cannot simply recommend it to everybody because I bought it. It is an insanely expensive software, and I was lucky to get it through a student's program, so I got it for a rather small amount of money, and because my studies involved all kind of media, starting image, video editing, picture editing, working with setting the layout for magazines and stuff, and the master collection from Adobe has all those features. And I was like, well, this is my profession, so of course I'm willing to invest the money. But for everybody who is doing this as a hobby and just starts out, it is completely understandable that you don't buy a program to begin with, not to mention such an expensive one. So, yeah, my answer is, hey, I use Adobe, but I cannot really recommend it unless you already know that this is really what you're going to do, because it's expensive. You don't want to buy it just for fun.
Right. Well, most people understand that my video editing is pretty basic. It's pretty amateurish. I use still images and maybe a few video clips, but yeah, you can do all of that in iMovie if you go to YouTube and learn the tutorials and figure out how. It is possible. I don't have to have anything fancy in my videos in order to draw on the audience. It's more about the character I'm creating and the topics I'm talking about. I'm not entertaining in a humorous sense, but I'm entertaining in more of a thought-provoking sense, I suppose.
I guess I can agree on that one. And yeah, as I said in the past, that you have a very especially in this crazy and wild and all over the place internet world we are all living in somehow, it is your really calm and still very passionate way about it. It is something unique in and of itself, and it is something that is really refreshing to see. So this is another version of entertaining. Yeah, you have worked out for yourself, which I guess goes pretty well with your real-life personality. So
yes.
This is
very much how I act in real life.
I mean, after all, this is you really talking, and not some scripted event or something. And well, I guess kind of same goes for me, with me being a little bit more random and hectic. So my videos are also often a little bit random and strange and stuff. I mean, I don't consider myself funny in a funny way. I consider myself in an funny because strange or weird or random way. I cannot write jokes, but I can act strange. If this makes sense. But to kind of bring it back to the whole how to get started things, because there were some aspects we just tacked on, which also are important for you when you want to get started. Like DrWolf mentioned that he has this personality, and first of all, it is one he is comfortable with, because it is very close to his real personality. I mean, basically, I would dare to say it's mainly the difference is that it is scripted or not. I mean, when we worked on the moment for DrWolf to give a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, what we did was we had an actual dialogue in written form. So it was actually the two of us talking just in written form. So it was our actual words. And
yes, indeed.
I kind of imagine your script writing process working rather similarly, that you are basically writing down, maybe a little bit more elaborate than you would do on spot, but writing down your honest and true thoughts.
It requires a little more structure when I'm just writing with myself because I'm not having banter back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a lot of the times when I'm writing a script, I'm writing exactly how I would say it if I was talking to someone. And then I'll go back and I'll improve the sentence structure and make sure I'm not using the same words over and over in the single sentence, that kind of thing. It sounds better that way. It will take some little editing here and there in order to make it sound good for an audience and not just for a one-on-one conversation you have with someone else. But yeah, it does help with script writing if it's what comes natural.
Mm-hmm. And I guess this is, when you get started out, a very important thing to keep in mind. When often enough you see somebody you want, let's for example take Digi, because Digi has a very also strong personality. He has an interesting mixture out of being laid back, but having this very fancy vocabulary every now and then. And when you are a total fan of Digi, and you should not try to emulate this very interesting and tricky to pull off mixture, because, well, in Digi's case, this is once again his real personality. He is like this. He is laid back, but he reads a lot, so he has a very refined vocabulary. If you are not him, you will have a hard time writing like him or producing very similar style. So when you get started out, you should focus on creating something that is very close to home for you. You can build upon it. You should, but this is probably a topic for a complete, maybe for a fourth part for your series, like how to evolve on YouTube. Because I guess it's with most people who keep their history intact and do not at some point delete their embarrassing early days, that you will be able to see a lot of change and progression in not only the editing quality, which I dare to say often evolves a lot as well. Me, for example, take one look of one of my most early pictures. I had only 3 OCs. They were different sizes and did not fit to each other. I was using a horrible black background, which I actually learned not to use anymore, because 2 friends who work in design told me, like, oh my god, you cannot do this. This is like black. It's creating a too strong contrast for people to look at. And Digi, and basically Digi was the one who brought me on the idea of the neutral colored backgrounds. So those are the things that evolve on a technical side of things. But you will also see a lot of stuff that, one very obvious thing with my videos, for example, the talking speed. In my very first videos, I was talking very controlled and monotone, because back then it is a foreign language I'm talking right now, so it was a little bit tricky for me to get in there. And phrasing, for me, a big change can be observed on a language level, but also on editing level you will see a lot of stuff changing, and also on the structure of the show itself. It started out being very random, just talking about the Crystal Empire and stuff, and then I came up with the formats like the top 5 yay and nay and so on. And with DrWolf, I believe your very first videos, there were, I believe, a few still shots that changed, or was it even on the Fluttershy? There were different ones, I remember. In the Fluttershy one, there were just a handful, but in between the still frame on screen switched.
My very first videos, I had no OC. I had a substandard microphone that just came with my laptop and didn't sound that great. And I knew nothing about video editing at all. I was trying to learn the bare bones basics I could do to just get by. But I knew even back then that you have to change up the visuals and keep the audience watching instead of just listening. There are plenty of people who try to get into MLP reviews and analysis by just having one static image, and they'll talk for 8 minutes straight. And they may have something interesting to say, but I'm not actually watching it. I might be listening to it while I'm doing something else, but you're not getting as much focus from the audience that way. It's not that hard to just come up with a different image for every 5 to 15 seconds the way I was doing it back then. You can find all the images straight from the show online via certain websites. I use mlp.wikia.com, even though it bombards you with advertisements. It's a very handy resource to get all the show's images instantly.
Mm-hmm.
You can find any episode and get what you need.
I just see this is exactly the same page I use for my show still frames as well. Link down in the description for everybody who actually hasn't discovered it. There is an entire list of all episodes, and if you click on the gallery button for each episode, by now, especially with the newer episodes, people are going insane, and every second of the show is represented in form of a shot. But it helps. So if you don't want, if you don't have the entire episode on your hard drive, or don't want to, or well, I guess usually most of us shouldn't have them. This is also a good way to easily get all the stills you need when you are like, well, I'm talking about. Very obvious example. I talk about Fluttershy being insecure and a little bit feeling a lot stressed out by their surroundings, and you recall, hey, in Hurricane Fluttershy, there was this one scene with all the googling eyes around her. All you have to do is go to this website, click the episode Hurricane Fluttershy, click Gallery, scroll durch. It's chronological order for most of the time. Scroll down till you find the image, download the image, and put it in your video, and continue for the next one.
And that's all I did for my verse video. I didn't have an OC on screen next to the images, but I could get images straight from the show, and it was very helpful in keeping the audience watching instead of just listening. Even though my audio quality was quite poor back then, I knew I had a lot to talk about, and I was able to put together a bare bones basic video that got a lot of attention.
Yeah, but this is the thing. What I mentioned earlier as well, the want to start out with a big bang. Yes, this is pretty much the dream for everybody, to start out with an explosion, to start out with a hit. But to be realistic, this is really, really hard to pull off. And usually people who actually manage that are people who had previous experience, who already did something like it. I mean, to bring once again Silverquill, Silverquill was top tier after one, if not two videos. He was already in multiple thousands. And this was because he did a lot with animation. He did a lot of unique style and high quality. But he is a little bit of he cheats a little bit in that regard, if I recall correctly, because he actually works as an animator in real life. So he brings a lot of experience to the table, and for most average YouTubers, this is simply not the case. For many of them, for the examples we mentioned earlier, people who are actually asking like, oh, how do I do this? Which program do you use? If you're one of them, you should keep it realistic. You will not make a first video like Silverquill did. You should go with very simple basics, and you can still work from there. Getting started out requires you being down to earth with it. You should know your own skills. You should bring the necessary amount of skills. So if you don't know anything about video editing, do it a little bit first. Practice a little bit. Before you do your first video, get the basics down. You don't need to be able to do fancy things. I mean, DrWolf is a perfect example of somebody who quickly got up there with rather basic things, and up to this day, I mean, you have 8 or 9 poses for your OC, your current one, don't you?
For the one I use the most, there are like 7 different poses.
Yeah, 7.
And I will use those poses over and over and over again. It's not all that important that you have OC poses in your videos. It's helpful, but it's far from a priority.
And you can boil it down to 7. Maybe let's be gracious and say 10. Have 10 very distinctive, very expressional poses if you want to go with an OC. As Dr. Wolf mentioned, you don't have to. Go with only a handful of very strong expressional poses. I mean, in my early days, I used random poses, like I used the Rainbow Dash Shrug, I used the sinking pose. They were completely random, different sizes, didn't fit whatsoever, and they created a little bit of hectic I would not recommend. But at least they were very distinctive. While nowadays I have, oh God, I don't even want to check, probably around 100 poses, and they all just differ in very, very minimalistic things.
Yeah.
But once again, what I basically did, because it became too much and too overwhelming, I picked the ones I use frequently, and this boils down to above something between 10 and 20 again. I picked the 10 to 20 poses I use the most, and usually when I start a new project, I only put those 20 in there, and only if I need them, I add other poses to it. So keeping it small, keeping it realistic, keeping it to stuff you can pull off. Getting better throughout time is always a possibility. If you feel like, hey, a little bit more animation would be cool, nobody keeps you from adding your knowledge of, for example, Flash, and maybe start integrating a bit more in your videos. But for your start out, keep it simple, I would say.
I'm actually still keeping it very simple.
And it works very well for you.
I have a few very complicated projects that are taking months to actually complete, but for most everything I'm doing, it's just very basic, simple stuff. I will collect a bunch of images, and I will talk with my poses on screen, and it's very easy to put that together because I want to be very consistent. I want to be making a minimum of 3 videos every week, if not 4 or 5. And I got to keep that up by keeping a very simple style.
Yeah, this is also a big thing, which I can tell you from my previous channel I had. Getting stuff out regularly is important. 3 videos per week is really impressive, which is probably, as you just said, it would not be possible if you would do more than the basics. But the good thing for you is that the strength of your videos comes through the writing and not through the fancy stuff going on screen, so you can pull it off. Nevertheless, getting videos out regularly, especially when you start out, is very important. I had, on my old channel, I had a show which, in all modesty, especially towards the end, was editing-wise really good. But the problem was, it took me half a year to create a new episode. You cannot build an audience with half a year of a waiting time. Simply as that. It made my heart bleed. I put so much effort in an episode, and then it was clicked a few hundred times, and I had 50 subscribers, and I was like, I really enjoyed making those videos, but it was also like, when you put so much into it, while yes, it is very important that you are passionate about what you do and you do it because you enjoy it, a little bit of recognition you usually wouldn't go on without it. I mean, Dr. Wolf, how about you? Could you imagine still doing this if there would be, or at least to this demand? I mean, still doing? Yes, I can see this. But would you still do it to this amount if there would only be 10 people?
I admit that there would be a huge drop in my motivation to be this prolific.
Yeah.
I'd still want to be making videos. I'd still want to be getting better with my voice work, because that was one of the main reasons I wanted to start doing this, is to practice and get better with how I'm using my voice. I would not be making anywhere near this many videos if I only had 10 people watching them. It would be hard to keep myself motivated if that's all that I got. But I'd still be trying to make something. And I'd still be trying to improve upon my talents. And if I found those specific 10 people really enjoyed what I was doing and really valued my opinion and really wanted to ask me questions and get advice on all these different things like I'm getting with hundreds, if not thousands now, then yeah, I'd still feel motivated to do something, just not as much.
And this is completely understandable. I mean, this is we are all humans after all. This is part of human nature that you need a little bit of feedback. And passion. Another example would, for example, Wolf Keen. I'm not sure if you are familiar with him, Dr. Wolf.
I have heard the name, yes.
He does basically do vlogs a lot, a bit of let's plays, a little bit of episode reviews, and other more general topics on MLP as well. And he is also he is really driven mainly by he has a few people watching, and he really produces on a super high frequency. But he has very little viewers, sadly. But for him, he is a good example of somebody who is doing it because he has fun, and even though he has not a big audience, he still hangs in there. And I guess it would be the same for me as well. I would not do it with this much amount. I would not put so much time into it. I would not so much effort in it if it would only be a small bunch of people. But I would probably do something like this as well. I mean, videos are somehow my passion, and but yeah, where did I start with this? I know I wanted to go somewhere with this when was it about the starting out big? Oh yes, yeah, basically all channel. You have to produce on a you have regularity, especially in the beginning, is important, because if you have one big hit video, people will come across this big hit video and will look, okay, before they like the video, they will comment the video, but if for them to subscribe, they have to be under the impression, okay, there is more than this one big awesome video to this person. And usually a video is ghosting around for a bit, so while the first video, the hype of the first video is still not completely gone, you manage to pull out the next one, maybe a week or two later. I'm not being like, oh, next day or something. This would again raise wrong expectations for people to be like, oh, there's a video every week now, cool. But if it takes half a year until you do produce another video, you will have a hard time convincing people that it is worth subscribing to you, because, well, half a year, I mean, some people are probably like, oh yeah, whatever. But if they see you have a lot of videos on your channel, they are somehow consistent, and you are still producing, maybe not regular, but every other week there is a new one, they are like, oh, I like what I saw, and I'm interested in seeing more. And to be interested in seeing more, they need to have the feeling that there is more. And yet, that's to finally wrap this ongoing circling thing up. The easiest way to convince them that there's more to see is when you start out and produce regular stuff on a regular basis, so they know, okay, he's active, he's delivering. Okay, new aspect. Oh god, this was going on for like forever.
Yeah. I think we were mostly sticking with the first subject of getting started. But there are a few things that I'd like to say as far as getting noticed. Because after you figure out how to make your first few videos, and after you start to get to feel of your online character that you want to portray and what works and what doesn't, how do you get noticed? There are lots of people who really want to figure that out. And it's like what you said in your video that you released over a year ago. You have to advertise yourself. You have to go to all these different websites and advertise yourself. You have to try to find anyone else who would be interested in these things and convince them that this is something interesting. And there are other resources available. It's not just sharing your video on YouTube, but also sharing it on Google Plus and on Facebook and on Tumblr and Twitter and wherever else you can, and trying to build an audience wherever possible. And then there are specialized websites like the MLP Analysis Reddit page that I was using a lot in my early days of making videos. I was doing that for months, posting every single new video I'd also posted over there. And there isn't that much of an audience, but yeah, this is a very specialized audience, people who love analysis videos and want to see a lot more, and they will take a look at what you're doing, and if they like it, they'll spread it elsewhere, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Which is, by the way, of personal experience here, very important on Reddit. On most Reddits, you are looked down upon if you post your own stuff. The analysis Reddit is an exception because it was created by Digi officially with the intention of posting your own stuff to share it with other people. On most Reddits, I made rather bad experience posting my own stuff, except you are an active user on Reddit yourself, who posts a lot of, who comments and posts a lot on different forums. But when you use Reddit as only a medium to get recognition, people have, somebody called me out once, like being like, "Oh, you are just using Reddit as your personal distribution tool." And my immediate reaction in my head was like, "Yes, exactly." I didn't feel bad about it because this was my intention, to use Reddit to get recognized, to get the word out there. But just as I said, just a fair warning. Most Reddits, the MLP analysis subject Reddit is an exception. Most Reddits don't welcome people only using Reddit as a distribution tool. With first videos, you can do it. If you do it too often, they will be like, "What, you again? Vote down." Just personal tip.
Right.
But yeah, I have to admit nowadays it becomes a bit more tricky to get noticed. I mean, in our particular niche, the Bronalysis thingy, originally this niche was really, it was easy to keep inside who is actually member of this niche. I was able to count the noteworthy people on one, maximum two hands when I started myself. Nowadays, per week there are 1 to 2 hands new people I have never heard of. And since I'm not a very active user or member of the Rift Cafe, the Skype group where all the people are together, for me it's like, for the people who are active in there, they know the new guys because they talk to them in the Rift Cafe and chat a lot and have video calls and whatnot. And for me it's like, okay, this person, I've never heard of her. Oh, I see, she was in a collab with DrWolf over there, and she did something with Toon Critic over there. I never even heard of this person. And it is by now, I guess you can say without overstating that there are hundreds, or at least 100 or something, people who do videos in the direction of Bronalysis. And to get noticed among all those is really difficult. So getting your word out has become even more important nowadays. And yeah, I often enough say that if I would have to start out again nowadays, I wouldn't have a chance.
There are still ways that you can sort of take advantage of the system, because in many ways, getting noticed really does require help from other channels, help from some bigger names. However, we're always getting a lot of requests from people, hey, can you help me out with this? Hey, can you help me get a big start? It's really hard to justify spending time with all of these different people when I can't look at their previous works and actually gauge their skills and say to myself, hey, is this really worthwhile? Is this worth my time? But if you want to take advantage of the system, there is a more recent example that comes to mind, something that was actually rather brilliant. A channel by the name of Finn the Pony actually put together multiple videos that talked about the top 10 MLP reviewers in the community.
Why do I not know about this?
Yes. And the way it worked is that he managed to gain a few hundred subscribers and these big names actually visiting his videos because he was taking advantage of their egos, for lack of a better word. All these bigger names were starting to look at these videos because, hey, did I make this list? Hey, what does he have to say about me? So in his case, he was able to take advantage of the fact that we're big name YouTubers in a way that actually feeds our ego, for lack of a better word.
True story. I mean, yeah. When I like a video, I have an automated system running which tweets every video I like to Twitter. And I have a few hundred people following me on Twitter. And when I see some, when I get oh God, this is kind of asking like for this kind of videos, isn't it?
Yeah, but that was only an example. The way I want people to, what I want people to take away from this is if you want some of the bigger names to actually look at your work, it is important that you have a worthwhile presentation and you know what you're doing when you're recording audio, because there's plenty of people out there who have no idea how to record dialogue, and I just can't listen to it for more than 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can get over that initial hump, then you can create videos that cite other people's work and do kind of a reaction to how they're thinking about things and their opinions on it. Like, I've seen a number of videos that talk about DrWolf in this video talked about this and this, and I agree with some of his points, but I actually think that this could be thought of in a different way. I'm more interested in watching that video because it's a direct response to one of my videos. And it's adding to the conversation. It's not just repeating what I said, but it's adding to it. That increases people's chances of getting it watched.
This is actually very good advice, I would say, because just making videos, praising videos, smearing honey all around. I don't really get the English sayings correct in this regard, but I guess you get what I'm meaning. Just this kind of thing would get stale rather quickly, and yeah, it worked for this one person, the Phil Pony, apparently. But yeah, adding to the conversation is a good way, especially if you add something worthwhile, if you add something meaningful. So you get when you reply to a person's opinion and what you have to say is good. When you use this as an opportunity to show off your skills, being it video editing, being it writing, whatever you bring to the table. So you use this only as a hook and get the attention of somebody because you reply to him or her. And then you are, because what the video you are doing is convincing enough that they are like, hey, checking this guy out, hey, have a thumbs up and a retweet. This is a far more, and this is a way that does not get stale. Because, yeah, just feeding somebody's ego doesn't work long. Yeah, I could see this work as well. And also a thing, you don't necessarily need to involve the bigger names. Sometimes when you have a really good video, really just share it. Send a PM and be like, hey, I made this video. I consider it good, and would be nice to hear your thoughts on it. Once again, I have to say, if this becomes too much, you also get, when too many people do this, you simply don't have the time to check them all out and to actually be into them to give some kind of feedback. So fair warning in that regard. But this is also a way. But you should really have an interesting and good video. As DrWolf said, when the audio or the dialogue is so off-throwing that after 2 seconds you have to switch off again, you didn't really gain a lot from this kind of exposure. I believe I already said this back in the success of DigiBrony video I made. Link in the description as well, whatever. When you approach somebody of the big names, have something to show off. Have something which you are, which you can realistically assume them to be like intrigued. Because if it is just if it is just something you randomly put together and you want to just randomly see, well, maybe they like it, if you are not passionate about it, then it is the question if this is really worth your time, worth the time of people you ask to watch it, and also it is kind of making it difficult for the people who come after you, because when 3 people did send a link to a video with no effort to me and I watched them, I was like, oh, another one. And then the 4th person come along who has an actually great video, but I am already in a mood like, another one? No, maybe not. This is unfair to the person who actually put effort into it. So really being very bland about the self-advertisement is fine, but have something worth advertising.
If I could bring up the Finn the Pony example again, guy who made top 10 Brony reviewer videos.
Link in the description as long as DrWolf sends it to me, because I have no idea where we're talking about.
It is interesting because I was curious about whether I made this list when he first sent a personal message, but within 5 seconds I'm looking at the video, this guy put a lot of effort into what he was doing. He knows how to edit. He's actually doing some really good recording of dialogue, and I'm actually wanting to hear more. Like you said earlier, his personal message, it was the hook. It got me interested to see, hey, did I make this list? I click on the video, and within a few seconds, I can tell this guy actually knows what he's doing. He put in the effort, and I wanted to watch more. I watched all 3 of those videos that made the top 10 reviewers list because I wanted to see how he did everyone, not just myself. Yeah. So I will definitely send you a link about it later.
Very nice, because I need to watch it myself now.
Right. Okay.
Did I make the list? No, don't spoil us. No spoilers.
Right.
Funny aspect in that regard, a little bit of the other side of the coin. I know I'm currently not really the most productive person, real life and stuff is taking me for producing new quality videos forever. They are still coming. I'm not becoming a complete vlog person. Vlog are just so easy to produce to fill time. I am also working on a top 5 yay and nay list for Analysts. So, which has a few criteria like, so I'm actually, just to give it away right now, the nays will not be me talking down on people. The nay, I actually modify it in a way that it is, that nay stands for, nay, why do they have not more more viewers? So the basic idea is that all entries I mention are people I recommend. So, but yeah, this is also a thing, when you get the attention of bigger ones, yeah, this might pay off if they do stuff like that. If I actually ever do it, finish it. I mean, the problem is I'm working on this script for so long that some of the numbers I'm using are not even correct anymore, which is a little bit tragic. I really need to get into the game again.
Whenever you have the time, anyways.
I know. Full plate, full plate. Yeah, I actually I believe what in the regards of getting noticed in advertising, there isn't much more to say, is there? Getting the word out on frequently or highly frequent websites, maybe addressing people with content that might get their interest at least for sharing it. Because if I come across a really good video like it used to be with the first Silver Quill one, I am not sure how I came across it. Maybe he even sent me a link, I don't know. But I came across it and I was so intrigued, I was like, what? This is his first video? I did not only like it, I also shared it on Tumblr and stuff like this. So when you have something really good to show off and you send it to somebody who has a bit of an audience also on different platforms, yeah, this is a way to get started. But beyond that, approaching people, using interesting hooks, and advertising the hell out of yourself. I guess not much more you can do in that regard. Well, one more thing, but this goes a little bit more with point one again, I believe. Do something unique. Do something special. And I know for the most people, by intuition, it is like, hey, I do an episode review. If you do an episode review, you have to bring something really stunning new about this episode to the table, because each episode has been talked about at least 10 times. Do something like DrWolf's first video, talk about Fluttershy as a character study. Do something like Digi's breaking video, we're talking about age of ponies, which was his big breakthrough. Something unique. Just don't necessarily. You can use episode reviews as your training wheels. You can practice your editing, your voice acting, and so on, and just ask for the general feedback about this kind of stuff. But don't expect people to be blown away by an episode review, unless you have something really amazing to say about it. This also is a possibility.
There are plenty of people who do episode and movie reviews. Just because I've seen all these other people do episode and movie reviews of the exact same material, I'm still going to watch this one person because they make it entertaining. They make it funny. They bring up consistent perspectives that nobody else has before. Even if everyone else is already doing it, if you have a unique hook, that's enough to keep an audience.
Absolutely.
Just make sure you're not doing it because you want to be just like this other person, because they already have this other person. Why would they want to watch it again?
Yes. It's the most dangerous trap to fall into, in my eyes. That because you are so intrigued by somebody that you end up copying this person. Point number 3.
Collaborations. How to do collaborations. I get many requests from people to do collaborations, mostly for the A Moment with DrWolf series. I'm getting at least a dozen new requests every month. Not just from people I don't know, but from people I do know, and I simply can't keep on top of the volunteer list. I'm trying. I'm really trying. But I think I have a few things that I can say as far as how to do collaborations. And first and foremost, what we've already been mentioning earlier, if you're wanting to do a collaboration with someone and they don't know you personally, it's going to be hard to get them to even reply back to you, because they get requests like this all the time. At the very least, you have to show that you've done some kind of previous work that would give them an idea of your skill set, what you can bring to the table. You have to be able to prove that I'm not just doing this out of the top of my head. I've actually put in the work on my previous videos, and I know how to record dialogue. I know how to come up with interesting topics. I know at least something about editing. You got to bring something to the table and not just expect them to give you all this time and attention because you asked for it. You got to have more than that. So that's first and foremost that I want everybody to understand. I'm trying to be as patient as I possibly can, and I'm trying to help everybody who asks me questions, but I can't answer everyone. And if I see that you don't have anything previous to bring to the table, it's hard for me to even justify spending time writing 3 paragraphs to you when I've got 11 other requests waiting in the line.
It is a sad truth, which I can pretty much add to. I mean, first, the one example I brought up earlier, I want to explain as well a bit further the keyframe phenomenon. How did she manage to get her first introduction to YouTube at all in a collab with Silverquill? Well, the trick was they knew each other. They already she did a live stream, a charity live stream a while ago, and he was a guest. And while she had trouble setting up the technology, he was already in a call with her. So they spent already a few hours talking to each other. They knew each other. But just getting a random message on YouTube like, "Hey, want to do a collab?" Oh God, now I have the song stuck in my head. Thank you, Ingrose.
Yes.
God damn it. So yeah, you have something to. The people need something to go off. If they know your personality, like Silverquill did with Keyframe, jackpot. As long as the chemistry works. I mean, if somebody knows your personality and it's like, oh my God, this person, I can't stand him, then it's probably not the best way to go. But for me personally, it was like when I have been asked for collaborations and they actually happened. The first one, I believe one of the first collaborations at all was the one with Voice of Reason. And yeah, he did the blunt way. He just sent me a private message like, hey, do you want to do a collab?
Yeah.
I know that gross.
Yes.
Oh, did you really need to cover the song? Like you need other reasons to have songs from Frozen stuck in your head.
Right.
Nevertheless. Yeah, he sent me the completely bland question, do you want to do a collab? I really need to come up with different phrasing. And, well, what I did was like, at first I was skeptical, but yeah, if you know me, you probably know that I am a little bit of a skeptical person to begin with. So yeah, I was skeptical and was like, oh, well, let's see. I mean, I was still rather small back then, and I already had this kind of mentality. So yeah, you can imagine it's not getting easier when you get more and more of those requests. And I am not such a nice person as DrWolf, so very few people are. So be aware. So I went to his channel and I checked the videos he had out back at the time, and I was like, huh, actually, I like his style. And well, this was all it took for me. I needed to have the question, and I went there and I was like, I like his style. I like how he sees things. I like how he edits things. I like how he talks. I like his writing. Bam. Collab happened. Up to date, one of my bigger videos on my channel. Thanks to Request Daily, I guess. For the context, it was my Magic and Mystery Cure review with him. Another one was with Storm Analysis. He also was like asking me, and I checked out videos on his channel and was like, yes, I can work with this. And you, on the other hand, should be realistic as well, being like, can I see myself in collaboration with this person? Because if you have a completely different style, you can be really good, but if you have a completely different style and you just ask somebody because it is somebody you look up to, it is somebody you are just having this idea of, wouldn't it be awesome? I know this feeling myself. I know I'm a total fanboy myself, and I know so many real big YouTubers, and I'm not talking about Bronalysis big, I'm talking about real big, like 6 to 7 digit subscriber counts. And I often fantasize about, wouldn't it be awesome to do something with this person? But on the other hand, I am self-critical enough to know that, yeah, it would be awesome, but let's be realistic. We wouldn't work well together. I mean, except the whole will it ever be possible? I mean, like on a basis like, yeah, we are two different. This wouldn't really work on a general basis. And this is something you should keep in mind when you have request collaboration as well. Like, keep it to ask somebody where you can actually see it happen, where the styles work well together, or having a show format that works rather well. I mean, you already mentioned the moment with DrWolf, which is it is first of all very new guy friendly, because it's basically, once again, you writing together, and a collaborative writing is often enough makes stuff easier, because you have somebody, you are not in there alone, you have somebody to bounce off, you can play the ball back and forth. So working together with people can actually really help you. Maybe something to consider for your own channel, that you simply start not out as a single person channel, but maybe as a duo channel. I mean, TBAP, anybody? TBAP? They mostly drive on their dynamic as a duo. So I guess this is actually an angle I haven't thought about earlier, but yeah, just not doing a one-man show, one-woman show would probably already mix things up by default. Oh God, I hate it when I get to distract myself too much. But yeah, reflect on how realistic it is, and yeah, moment with DrWolf, very easy, a very newcomer-friendly format, because yeah, it's a dialogue, pretty much writes itself. Respectively, you actually have a dialogue which you write down, and it is very open topic-wise. The moment the topic gets more narrowed down, it becomes more tricky again. Then it has to fit better. Because with the moment with DrWolf, whatever subject the guest brings is the red line throughout the story, and it is simply the back and forth between you and your guest. If you have something like an episode review, it becomes, you talk about, it is not about the dialogue, it is talking about something else in dialogue, which often enough gets a little bit trickier to make it smooth. I know this from crossovers I have been part of, crossovers I have seen, and so on, that often when you have different points you want to make, that the transition between one point to another point often enough doesn't feel like a natural dialogue. It's like somebody's monologues for a paragraph, then, oh yeah, you are so right, monologuing about my own paragraph. And this is trickier to pull off in collabs. So I would say, if you are not familiar with it, also choose a topic that makes it smoother to get into it. It can be very helpful to have somebody to bounce off, but the bouncing off, you have to figure stuff out as well, I'd say, to make it feel natural. And maybe something in general, I'm not sure in how far you are going to cover this, different kinds of how to do a collab. I'm not sure if you wanted to go into this as well.
I had a few things that I could talk about there. One thing you've already slightly touched on when you were talking about Voice of Reason, the fact that he wanted to do a collab with you, and the fact that he was willing to do most of the grunt work to make it happen. That certainly grants a few points in favor of whoever wants to do a collab with you, if they're willing to put forth the effort to make it look good and sound good.
Actually, I did the editing for both parts of our review.
Okay.
But
I thought you said that he did the grunt work.
But you have a very solid point. When somebody asks me about a collab, and basically I have not much to do in regards to writing and editing, I am far more willing to join in, I have to admit. because it's, yeah, you save a lot of time.
In my case, like I said, I'm making 3 to 5 videos every week. I'm already very busy. If I get a message from someone and I see their previous work, hey, this guy or gal knows exactly what they're doing. They have some experience with editing and recording dialogue and coming up with interesting topics. And they're coming to me saying, hey, let's write a script together. And if you send me your recorded lines, I'll take care of everything else. Yes, it does help. It helps a lot. Because I like to be able to talk about things, and I like being able to get my voice out there. Editing is a very lengthy process, and if I don't have to put in that work, somebody else is stepping forward and doing that, and actually maybe even do it better than I could. Like I said, I'm very basic in my editing skills. Then yeah, I'm more interested in doing something with them.
Oh, I know the feeling. Even so, yeah. It doesn't even necessarily have to be about being lazy. It can really be a time issue. I mean, this is, yeah, with you with producing 3 videos a week, and with me simply trying to get any editing done besides work at all. Time is such an unbelievable strong aspect in this entire video production thing. But yeah, another thing we maybe could just tackle on I don't know, just a few minutes, I guess, is different ways of writing a collab. Because so far with the different people I did collabs with, I had very different experiences in writing, and they worked in completely different ways. Like I mentioned earlier, writing the Moment with DrWolf with you was because it was an actual dialogue that happened in real time in written form. It was a very interesting and unique thing, which I often enough, and it was, I guess, the natural flow comes far easier when you write like this, because, for example, my collabs with Voice of Reason, we are usually in a Skype call and we discuss what we are going to do next and what we talk about, and we collect points we want to address early on. Yeah, I believe we did 3 by now. Yeah. So it was always like and all 3 were episode reviews. So we both had our idea what we want to mention, and then we kind of worked it together, and it was more constructed. On the one hand, you can also implement more humor this way, more jokes, because, well, it is constructed, so it's not in a natural dialogue. Sure, there happens humor every now and then as well, but it's easier to pull it off when you plan what you say. You can one can give the build-up to the punchline of the other one and stuff like this, and you can be in the call like, oh, say this, I have a great comeback. This kind of stuff is possible when you have this more constructed way. And yeah, the one DrWolf kind of already mentioned, the one when somebody else does, for example, the writing. And amazing with the outcome, but it was rather great in itself as well. An amazing project was AnYTime Day of the Doctor crossover review. What he basically did for this video. Oh, and by the way, Mage for the Lethal Halloween did pretty much a similar thing. In both cases, they both just asked the people they wanted to participate a few questions, like, hey, Mage was like, here, the questions Lethal actually asks in the video. She sent those questions to all the participants. Let us answer those, and then she built the script around the answer so that she knew when somebody has to die and when somebody passes a test. So she picked the answers, our actual answers. She picked those and wrote the script around it that it turns out the way she wanted it to. And with Cam Goes Pony, he also sent us a few questions like, hey, what were your highlights of the episode? What were your biggest complaints about Day of the Doctor, and so on? And we sent him back our feedback, and he wrote the entire review. He wrote the entire script. I am not sure how many people were in this production. I believe 10 or something.
I think it may have even have been as high as a dozen.
Probably, yeah. I mean, when I try to recall this final frame, when we all stand there in this big V form, there are very many of us. And
I suppose for the TF2 project that we're putting together right now, that has
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, the 9 reviewers that all helped to write the script together, that Josh and I came up with the general outline of what we wanted to have happen, and then the reviewers would come in and say, oh, I want to say this line here because it would be really funny, kind of thing.
It goes in a similar direction, like having somebody giving the structure and then everybody filling it in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, there are a lot of very different ways, and I believe TBAT actually are unscripted, aren't they? I believe.
I think they have some idea about what they want to talk
Probably.
about, but yeah, it's basically them just playing off of each other the whole time.
I couldn't imagine doing this with somebody who unplanned, like, I don't know, for an hour and 15 or something.
Right.
But yeah, as a general tip, so there are a lot of different ways of how to do a collab. So this is also something, when you started out, you got your word out there, and you are step 3, and you are at the point where you are considering asking people for collabs. This is also something to consider, how you are going to do the collab, because if you just have this vague idea of I want to do a collab, and you write somebody, hey, you want to do a collab, and it's a person who is like me, you will get questions back like, okay, what do you want? How do you plan it? And if you don't know this at this point, you should think about it earlier. That's pretty much what I'm trying to say.
Definitely helpful, yeah.
Yes. Have an idea. Before you ask somebody about a collab, have an idea how to do it, how to approach it. We just gave you a few different ways of approaching a collab, and, well,
I suppose one other little tidbit I can say is that if you're going to approach someone with an idea, make sure they haven't already done it even multiple times, because yeah, I have to keep reminding people, I've already actually made a video about this. In fact, in some cases, 2 or 3 videos about this. What else could I say about the subject, kind of thing?
Also, it's not leaving the best impression to the person you're asking, like, oh, I'm a total fan of you. Do you want to talk to me about this? I already did this. If you are such a great fan, why are you not familiar with what I do? This is all. I mean, sure, depending on how many videos somebody has out there, it is often enough not possible to know everything everybody always talked about. But if you ask somebody about one of his biggest, if you would go to DrWolf and be like, Dr. Wolf, would you do a collab with me on the role of Fluttershy?
I've done how many videos about Fluttershy already?
Exactly. So if you approach somebody because you are such a big fan of it, or let's just say it is kind of sending a wrong message, because the person has to question herself, are you really asking me because you like my stuff so much, or do you ask me because of my subscriber number? This is also something. You have the sub-message you might send with it when you are asking in that kind of way. Oh, anything else you wanted to bring up, what you are probably going to mention in a more cohesive and structured form in your upcoming video series? Link to his channel in the description anyway. So,
right. Okay.
And his face
I'm still
is clickable.
working on scripting the very first video, and I intend to make at least 3 videos on this subject, and they're not going to come out for at least a couple of weeks. I'm that far ahead in my work that I've got like 4 or 5 videos ready to be uploaded right now, so what I'm making right now is not going to get shown up until a couple weeks from now at least.
You are despicable.
Yes, I know.
I'm working on this one video for weeks now, and you have... God damn it.
I keep very, very busy, and I try to keep my process as simplified as possible to keep up with that schedule.
I need to get you back into video gaming so you have less time for video production. Because I know you used to be a gamer.
I used to be a gamer. Then I started making videos about MLP.
I'm still trying to do both, so I'm failing at both.
Right. Anyways, you'll get back into your routine eventually, ANY. You just have to find that niche to make it work.
I just have to quit my job.
Yeah.
No, I won't.
I've got a full-time career myself, and I could not imagine getting rid of this full-time career to do this full-time, to do YouTube full-time. I don't want to do that. I like having a full-time career and doing this as a hobby.
But yeah, as it seems you are managing quite well, so in your case, you got it all, bro. So, final thoughts.
It can happen. I was at a point where I didn't believe it was possible that I could gain an audience on YouTube. I was extremely hesitant to even get my voice out there in the first place. I had no idea whether people would even listen to what I was talking about. I just knew that I had a lot to say, and I wanted to put my hand out there and say it. Your feelings of being hesitant right now, that can change. That really can change. You have no idea what you're capable of until you actually get out there and do something about it. I never would have known that I had all these skills and that I could make all these friends, that I could be far more social than at any other point in my life. I had to get over those hesitations. I encourage other people to do the same because you might surprise yourself. You really could.
These are two great last words. I don't really want to spoil it with adding too much else. So I am just saying, this is ANY.
And this is DrWolf.
Saying, see you soon.